All right. So yesterday I was watching a video Tyler Preston did. It was more like one of those hangouts where a bunch of YouTube people hang out together and chat about something. And he was there with Lisa Nani, who I've never heard of, Patty Politics, who I'd never heard of, Andy Worski, who I've seen some of his stuff. He seemed to start off more neutral, and then when the SJW stuff started going off, he got a little bit more aggressive and mean and just attacking because he felt that's what was in the best interest of his channel. I kind of liked the raw, more realistic seeming Andy that was there earlier, but he's obviously performing a service, so I have nothing against him. And then Satu, 2 cents, but he kind of showed up at the last minute. He was gone for most of it. And then Devil's Advocate. And these 5 people were with Tyler Preston, and they were discussing veganism. And because Andy Worski was a vegan for about 6 to 8 months, he kind of was the one doing a majority of the talking about how he liked it at first, but then he started feeling really bad and really sick and whatnot. And people with stories like him aren't making this up. This does happen. I've told you from firsthand experience that first I went vegetarian in January of 2015, and I crashed and burned. I think the first 2 weeks I felt great, and then I started crashing and burning. I tried to tough it out, to ride it out, to do what I could to make it work, and after about 4 or 5 months I just gave up. I couldn't handle it. It was driving me crazy how bad I felt. My health's super important to me, and say what you will, but there's a strong survival instinct in me, strong sense of self-preservation, and when it seemed like I was getting sick all the time and getting unhealthy and getting weak and couldn't do anything I loved, I was like, forget this, man. So I started eating meat, but because of, I didn't watch Cowspiracy or any of these other things, but being vegetarian for just that little bit of time, it did open my eyes to things. It did make me aware that there's probably some stuff out there. So I tried to be as ethical as I could when I went back to eating meat, but it never felt right. I didn't like it. Nothing tasted the way it used to, because I was thinking about a lot of the things I was contributing to and whatnot, even though I was trying my best to avoid the actual industry made stuff that's so much worse, but I still didn't feel good about what I was doing. So it didn't last very long, and about a year ago or so, September of last year, I decided to switch back just to vegan. I had read Patrick Bobamian's book, and I read that he had a hard time when he went vegetarian, but then when he went vegan, he did good. So I thought maybe it was the vegetarian part of my diet that made it not work. Well, it's pretty much the same thing. 2 weeks I felt great, and then I started to crash and burn. And if you look at some of my earlier videos, you'll see that I was focusing on B12, and I was focusing on vitamin D and zinc and getting your healthy fats and all this stuff. And I did make one error. The vegan community, since most of them don't lift and don't strain themselves hard, have this stupid belief that if you get enough calories, you get enough protein. And that may be true for a normal person, but it doesn't seem to be true for an athlete who really pushes themselves. I do agree with them that people do seem to overemphasize the importance of protein, but I think vegans go to the other extreme and underestimate the importance of protein. And they think just because they go around doing their vegan lives that don't strain their body very much, that if they have enough protein, anyone else would have enough protein, not caring about it. And that didn't seem to be the case with me. But anyway, I had a friend who started veganism about a decade before me, who was also into lifting weights and martial arts and stuff. So due to our similar paths, he was able to help me out a lot. It happened to be the case that because I was larger and more active, the daily recommended allowance wasn't enough. So I was trying to keep everything at least at 100%, and I had to bump some things up to 300, 400%, and it started working out. Like my iodine had to go up. I had to have a little bit more salt, and it all ended up working out finally after struggling when we tweaked the diet some. So I can see where this Andy Worski's telling 100% the truth, that he was asking them questions and they were giving him answers, and he was doing everything they said and it still didn't work. Because if I was talking to normal vegans, that same thing would have happened to me. The only difference is the vegan I was talking to actually did lift weights. He actually did do martial arts. So his lifestyle was similar enough that we could problem shoot things better, and I did good. And so maybe different body types react to this different, because I don't see people like John Venus and Leo Venus struggling any, and they're larger, more active guys, and I never heard Corey McCarthy go off on him having any struggles. And even Vegan Gains, I mean, he's smaller than me, but he's still like 6'3", 185, and he does lift. So some people seem to do just fine, but some people like me crash and burn, and I think that's what happened to Andy Worski, and I think that's what happened to the Hodge twins, though Brian Turner has a different theory. But so I believe these people when I say things like this. And they were going off on a lot of the stupid things vegans say, and there's a lot of stupid things vegans say. People don't have any respect for the truth or knowledge nowadays. Like, because there's so much misinformation on the internet, and then there's like movies like What the Bleep Do We Know, where they talk about the limitations of human perception and whatnot. People kind of like view every argument the same regardless of the kind of evidence to back it up. So you'll see things online saying that humans are herbivores, which is stupid. If we were herbivores, all these people eating this meat all the time would be having more immediate, more disastrous consequences. I agree that maybe there's long-term health things, but it wouldn't work that way. It would be more immediate. It'd be more quick. We are omnivores. We're opportunists. We did have that stage where we learned how to cook and we started eating meat and stuff, where our brain developed faster because of the resources available. And so there's a lot of things the meat eaters say that's true, and a lot of things the vegans say that are untrue. And so it makes vegans seem like a bunch of brainwashed cultists spreading information, spinning the tale however they can to make their movement look good. And so people don't trust it. But then you have people out there like John Venus, Leo Venus, Corey McCarthy that care more about truth. They actually represent it like more objectively, and they put out good information. And I love people like that. Just like on Natural Vegan, I feel she does the same thing. That's why on this channel I'm subscribed to all of them. And Brian Turner, there's plenty of good examples out there, but there's lots and lots of bad examples. I'm sure you've seen lots of them, and there's lots and lots of bad examples in the real world. So I can see why these people were going off and saying the things they were saying about veganism. It makes sense to me, just like the stuff Joe Rogan, it all makes sense. But all I can say is a lot of vegans have a good reason for making the choices they make, and that it's not as simple as you go vegan and everything's magical, especially if you neglect your B12. That'd be ridiculous. Vegan Gains is right in that you can just get fortified foods like almond milks or something. They have B12 in it, so it's not that complicated of an issue, but you do have to address it, because vitamin B12 is one of the most important things in the whole world for your body, and you're going to be having blood cell issues and nerve function issues and all kinds of things you don't want to deal with if you don't have enough B12. So it's definitely something you don't want to neglect. So, but it's not hard. Like he said, you could just get fortified foods. So it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be a vegan, but don't believe all the nonsense they say either. It's definitely a good choice. I'm glad I made it. It's made my life better. I feel like it's helped improve my health as a 41-year-old. I felt like things were finally starting to catch up with me. Before, as like youth and being super, super active was kind of offsetting the negative effects of some of the things I was putting in my body. But Now that I was getting older, things were starting to catch up, and going vegan seemed to turn the clock back a little bit, not very much. Not going to make up any false stories or exaggerate the effects or anything, but it did seem to make me feel a little bit healthier, get a little bit more energy, not quite need to get as much sleep, helping me out a lot since I'm running this business and so busy. So it's something I recommend, but I can definitely see why things like this conversation with Tyler Preston and his friends are out there, because it's easy to identify with where they're coming from.